Hello, I have a terrifying story to tell. I won't waste any time going over trivial information like my identity, as I have little time to spare. The Roggen is close. Too close. I have to keep moving. All of this started when a new co-op horror game was released called Lethal Company. The premise was simple. Collect enough scrap to meet the ever-increasing quota, while avoiding the many hazards and creatures contained within the facility. Almost immediately, it exploded in popularity. Clips of streamers and YouTubers playing the game began circulating on social media, further increasing the game's popularity. I knew I had to try it. The only problem was the price. The game was a whopping $10, which was too much for me. I preferred to save my money for more important things like DoorDash and Candlelight Comics. My only other option was to use a torrenting website. A few minutes later, I had the game installed and ready to go. When I launched it, I saw the Windows command prompt open for a few seconds, and a bunch of numbers with dots appeared. I thought this was strange, but I decided to ignore it. Upon starting a new save, I opened the terminal so I could look for a planet to root for. All the pros knew that 220 Assurance was the best moon, so I decided to go to 21 Offense because the description sounded cool. After landing, I took a few minutes to take in my surroundings. All I could see in every direction was sand and hills. Old, decrepit machinery lay scattered around somewhat erratically. A long pipe stretched from one side of the map to the other, where what looked like an exit door was placed. Right in front of me was a massive concrete structure, which presumably housed the facility entrance. I headed towards the structure. This took a while, as the in-game character could only run for a few seconds, just like me. As I approached the doors of the factory, I felt my stomach growling. I realized to my horror that I still hadn't eaten my sixth snack of the day. I got out of my chair, which screamed in agony as it recoiled upward. I decided that I would have Roggen's delicious canned spaghetti on toast, which is a Roggenian delicacy. I grabbed an expired can of canned spaghetti and a stale loaf of maggot-filled bread before heading over to my knife drawer. However, upon opening it I knew something was off. My favorite knife, the Roggen Plus, was missing. I got it over a year ago after seeing it on one of those late-night infomercial channels that they scam old people with. It was not an ordinary knife. You see, the Roggen Plus got duller and duller with every use, more so than an average and inferior knife. In fact, my Roggen Plus had gotten so dull that it had been relegated to butter knife duties. I sighed. Without it, I would once again have to smear the spaghetti onto the bread with my unwashed feet. I grabbed another 6-pack of Diet Roggen Cola before heading back to my gamer battle station. Upon returning, I noticed that the time had somehow changed to my real-life time. 3 a.m. on Friday the 13th. I thought this was strange, but I assumed it was just a glitch caused by all the canned beans I was storing in my PC case. I entered the facility, which happened to be the mineshaft interior. However, when I tried to use the elevator, nothing happened. I began frantically spamming the start button, but the elevator refused to budge. Now covered in sweat, I realized that the elevator had no power. In fact, none of the outdoor lights had power, something I had never seen before. It became clear that it would be best to go through the fire exit instead. On my way to the fire exit, I encountered no outdoor enemies, which was quite peculiar, considering that it was long past the time at which they start spawning. Surprisingly, I found this to be the case when I re-entered the facility too. It was eerily quiet, aside from the occasional ambient sound, and my PTSD-riddled neighbor firing his hunting rifle at squirrels. Inside, I wandered aimlessly for a few minutes until I stumbled across an item I've never seen before. Unmistakably, a large roll of copper wiring rested at the entrance to one of the mineshaft caves. It was worth a whopping 666 credits, far more than even a gold bar. Looking up now, I saw that there was another roll of the same value a few feet into the cave. I went to pick it up, seeing yet another roll a bit further in. I followed the trail of copper wiring until I reached the exit at the other side of the cave. For some reason, the lights were working in this isolated section of the interior. I moved forward, but heard a wet footstep sound. When I looked down, I saw something horrifying. It was blood. A trail of scary, hyper-realistic blood. I followed the trail until I saw something I'll never forget. It was a player's body. Around it was a pool of scary hyper-realistic blood and rolls upon rolls of copper wiring. I approached the corpse so I could get a better look. Unlike most bodies in Lethal Company, it was incredibly fat and had green stink lines radiating from it. I scanned the corpse, gasping when I saw the following text. Body of Steven somehow, the in-game body, which was surrounded by scary hyper-realistic blood and copper wire, belonged to me. There were 2 causes of death listed. The first was cardiac arrest, and the second was stabbing. I attempted to make sense of my findings, only to be interrupted by a gravelly voice from behind me.
Stephen, east of you.
The voice said. I whipped around, and standing just a few feet back was a tall, skinny red figure. Before I could take a closer look, I was interrupted by a loud bang in the real world. I turned around, just in time to be showered with wood splinters and other debris. A tall figure stood where my door once did. It had managed to knock my door clean off its hinges, presumably with a single kick. I was unable to make out any discernible details, as the figure stood shrouded in darkness. Perplexed, I told the figure that I had not ordered any food and that they would need to pay to replace my door. This confusion turned to horror when the creature stepped forward, putting its tomato red body on full display. I initially thought it was some weird prank until I looked up at the figure's head. It lacked a mouth and nose, having only one large and bloodshot hyperrealistic eye. A pointy crest adorned the top of the head. Not only was the creature before me clearly a Roggen, it was the infamous bloody killer Roggen. Even worse, the bloody killer Roggen was wielding a large knife covered in what must have been tomato sauce. Before another sound could leave my lips, the Roggen lunged at me, knife raised. Frozen solid in fear, I could do nothing but cower back with my eyes closed. However, all I felt was a slight prick in the center of my chest. My eyes shot open, surprised to see the Roggen right in front of me, so much so that if the creature could breathe, I would almost certainly have felt his tomato red breath against my forehead. I looked down and saw the knife stuck right in the center of my chest. Despite this, I could not feel any pain, and no blood was present. The Roggen slowly withdrew the knife, revealing it had not actually pierced any skin, and that this was merely an illusion caused by the many flaps of fat on my chest. The Roggen tried yet again to stab me, but failed once again. In fact, this time no slight prick coincided with the knife's impact. It then dawned on me that the Roggen had foolishly stolen my Roggen Plus, which by this point was too dull to even cut through a pile of Roggen-O's delicious benzodiazepine-flavored spaghetti. At this point I could do nothing but laugh. Was this truly all the famed beast had to offer? I laughed and laughed, my entire house shaking with each bellow. It wasn't long before this caused my floorboards to collapse, which were already feeble from supporting me and my termite colony for so many years. I was sent crashing down to the first floor, leaving behind a 7 by 7 foot hole in the upper floor. I somehow managed to make it down while only taking on a few cuts and bruises. I looked up and was horrified to see the Roggen glaring down at me while holding an extra-large family bundle-sized can of explosive Roggen-O's delicious canned spaghetti. The long wire fuse attached to the can had been lit, and the sparkling light was rapidly approaching the can. The Roggen flipped me off before dropping the can down the hole I had made. With mere seconds to spare, I darted out of the house, moving faster than I had at any point in my life. I dove down to the ground just in time for my entire house to be engulfed in a giant fireball. Wood and other debris flew in every direction, but by some miracle I managed to get by unscathed. I immediately got up and started running away. I didn't even want to look at what remained of my house, it would only remind me that I never got to finish the half-eaten Roggen-O's pizza in my mini-fridge. I headed into town, smashing a window to get into the local library where I am currently writing this. While initially confident that the bloody killer Roggen had been obliterated in the blast, I saw it watching me from the tree line when I stopped at a Roggen-O's Italian for a brief respite. And for a 4-course meal. I have to keep moving, but before I depart, heed my warning. Never download Lethal Company from diddlersbasement.gov or the bloody killer Roggen will come for you. Farewell.